So today for our daily cancellation, we return to my favorite source for cancellations, TikTok. Now, there are some who say that I spend too much time responding to content on TikTok because TikTok is frivolous and irrelevant and stupid, and everyone knows it, allegedly. But this just goes to show, once again, why conservatives themselves are increasingly irrelevant in the culture. We tend to think that because something seems stupid to us, unimportant to us, a silly distraction to us, that it must seem that way to everyone else. But that's not the case. The fact is, whether you like it or not, and I most decidedly do not like it, TikTok is one of the places where millions of people, especially kids, go to get information and have their own views affirmed. For that reason, it matters, even more than the mainstream media. I mean, I should spend more time on this show responding to TikTok than whatever they're saying on CNN or NBC, because TikTok and platforms like it move the culture and influence people much more than does, say, Don Lemon. So with that preamble out of the way, a recent viral video must now be brought under consideration. Here's a young woman by the name of Sarah. She made a video to tell the world about the books that she'll be reading her very young son, Bennett. She's being applauded for this, and I am being mostly condemned for having criticized her, but you can make up your own mind. Let's watch the video first.
Hi there, my name is Sarah.
This little cutie is my son, Bennett.
As you can see, my son is a white male, so here are some books that I bought to help prevent him from growing up to be awful. Starting out strong, we have C is for Consent. Pretty self-explanatory, but it's a picture book that goes into detail about consent with your body, with family. Along that same note, we have Will Ladybug Hug. Teaches the same kind of concept and in a more childish way about a ladybug who is hugging his friends, even has one friend who doesn't like hugging. So, this one is called Only for Me. Also, same concept, teaching kids about consent and things that feel comfortable with their body. Because I'm raising a feminist, we've got A is for Awesome, 23 inspirational women. Next, we have I Clean Like Daddy. There's even a page in the end where the whole family is cleaning together to show that it's not just mom and sister's job. Finally, we have Except When They Don't, a book about boys and girls liking whatever they want, regardless of their gender.
Okay, so we have two major issues here. One is the books themselves, and the other is the stated reason for reading the book. So let's go with the latter first. Sarah informs us that her son is a white male, which in some ways perhaps is progress. At least she didn't tell us that her son is a white female or a non-binary pansexual kangaroo or something. She does at this point have a fundamental understanding of biology, it seems, and realizes that her son is indeed male. That's good. The only hang-up is that she seems to have a lot of suspicion and resentment even towards her son for being male. Now, if for whatever reason you don't immediately understand why the phrase, "my son is a white male, so I have to prevent him from being awful," is a problem, imagine the same thing, but directed at a different kind of baby. Imagine a mother with a black male child saying, "As you can see, my son is a black male, so here are a bunch of books I bought so that he doesn't grow up to be awful." Or perhaps, even better, a father, imagine a father pointing the camera towards his 6-month-old daughter and saying, "As you can see, my daughter is a female, so here are a bunch of books I bought to prevent her from being a shrill, overbearing harpy." Would there be anything to discuss in either scenario? No. Everyone everywhere would unequivocally condemn that sort of attitude. Only where it pertains to white males do we suddenly want to make an exception. Which proves not that Sarah isn't bigoted, but that she's far from alone in her bigotry. Of course, there's nothing wrong with parents endeavoring to make sure that their children grow up to be good people as opposed to awful people. Every parent on the planet has looked to awful adults at some point and said, "My God, I need to make sure my kids don't turn into that." I have thoughts along those lines every day of my life. I had that thought of Panera Bread, watching the people eating their bread bowls with masks on at the table. And I thought, I hope my kid, whatever happens with my kid, I hope they never turn into that. The problem is when your concerns are specifically racial and gendered, as though you're worried that they'll be awful because of their identity. It's one thing to acknowledge the fallen state of the human race and our propensity for evil. It's another to imagine that your own child is especially susceptible to it based on their identity. That's called bigotry. And yes, to be bigoted against your own flesh and blood is deranged beyond all imagining. It's the type of thought process that has been made possible by the critical race theory cult. One of the most basic strategies of any cult is to turn its members against their own families. Now, usually this involves turning children against parents, and CRT does that too. But the even more demented thing is to turn parents against children. And then what about the books themselves? Even many of the people criticizing this video have still allowed that the books are fine in and of themselves. It's just the framing that's the problem. But I disagree. The books are a problem too. First of all, she has 3 books on consent, 3 of them, that she'll begin reading to her child from infancy. And remember, she's not reading the books in order to protect him from being the victim of non-consensual touching. No, this is all about stopping him from sexually assaulting other people. This is a woman so worried that her son will be a rapist that she started him on an anti-rapist curriculum from infancy. She might as well read him a book called We Eat Dinner with People, Not People for Dinner, in order to teach him how to not be a cannibal. I mean, she has imagined that her son is at a very high risk of being an absolute monster, not just a bad person, but a monster. And now she'll spend most of her maternal energy steering him away from what she believes is a near inevitability. All you're really doing at best is creating an issue where it didn't exist and introducing concepts where before there was but childish innocence and ignorance. By the way, in spite of the feminist insistence that we need to teach our sons not to rape, and they say that all the time, right? The truth is, no, you shouldn't need to specifically teach that. I don't know about you, there was never a time in my life when my parents sat me down and said, now son, don't be a rapist. Any more than they ever sat me down and said, now son, don't be an axe murderer. They never said either of those things. And yet, I became neither an axe murderer nor a rapist. Why? Well, because they inculcated in me a more complete value system. They taught me to respect the dignity and value of other human beings as well as my own. And they instilled virtue, as well as they could anyway, while warning against sin and vice and so on. When you do that with your children, they will not grow up to be perfect people, but they will develop a moral code and a system of values that will direct them away from things like rape and murder. And hopefully, it'll do a lot more than that. It turns out you should aim a lot higher than just don't be a rapist, don't be awful. And when you aim higher, when you aim for actual virtue, the don't be awful and don't be a rapist lesson is baked into the cake. You don't even need to say it or focus on it. Especially not when the kid is still in diapers, you damned fruitcake. As for the other 2 books, or other 3, there was one telling the boy that he should help clean around the house. And then there was another telling him that he can play with whatever toys he wants, regardless of gender. Those could be okay in and of themselves, depending on the specifics. I haven't read the books, so I don't know. But this mother is not reading those books in order to open up possibilities and to allow the child to express himself. She has rather a very specific and rigid idea of the sort of boy she wants him to be. She's already labeled him. He's a feminist. 6 months old, he's already a feminist. She's decided that from birth. So, although she says, oh, kids can like whatever they want, they can do whatever they want, in reality, she has made a box for him and she will fit him into it one way or another. Now, of course, we all make boxes as parents for our kids. We all have ideas of about the sorts of people we want them to be. That's what instilling values is all about. But the difference is that progressive parents, quote unquote, have an even narrower and more constricting box, all while pretending that there's no box at all. And that's the real problem. And that's why they are all canceled today, along with Sarah. But not her poor child, who is certainly not canceled and is going to need all the help he can get. And I fear for him and so many other kids. Listen, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it right now. I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.